I was born in Rexburg, Idaho, and October 22nd, 1927. I had lots of sisters and a couple of brothers, so, and my dad, like I say, was a musician, so each one of us played an instrument, and so we had like a quartet or quintet. We'd play. This was long before family night came about, but we had our own family night because we didn't call it family night. It was just we got together and played our instruments, and then my mom would give us refreshments or whatever, So we're the ones that invented family night, so to speak. But I just remember my dad being a musician and teaching students a lot and hearing music continually. And then he also did the Messiah every year, and he did an opera every year. And as I got older, I got to play violin in the orchestra when he did these big productions. And at that time, they were the Tabernacle Choir wasn't at the height that it is now. It was smaller, and they just did the Messiah or whatever. My dad's group was equivalent to theirs at that time, and that's how good he was. That's how good it was. But anyway, I just remember growing up with music, and that one story I told you how, as my dad taught a student, I would stand in the doorway and listen. And then when they'd leave, I would go over and play it by ear without any music or anything, just because I guess I was born with that, with that blessing. It's been a blessing to me. Except when I hear somebody do something bad, and then I think, how can they do that? But music's been a big blessing in my life. I was younger. Well, that's a good story, though. We lived 6 West. Let's see, we lived west. Anyway, I would walk home, and the college kids would be coming down from the other direction. So if we were both on the sidewalk, we would meet. But I was so shy that when I'd see a college kid coming down, I would cross the street. And then I'd cross back over, Oh dear, how shy can you get? Too shy to pass them on the street. We lived we lived a half a block east of Snow College building, and they had students there that were learning how to teach children. So they had a group that would teach small classes like a kindergarten class, and but we would. I remember, getting involved in that. But I remember more as I got older. Outside they had these bars, a bar that was about like that, with a thing in the middle, and we would get up on it, and then we'd swing down around, and do all these tricks on the bar, So that was fun. I can remember some of them are pets that we had after I was married. So like Duke and Duchess, after we were married, they were our pets, right? But let's see. Ooh.
Talked about a dog that would go to the corner and bark when the alarm would ring it.
Yeah, he wouldn't bark. He'd go, woo! He'd mimic the noon whistle. They had, at noon, they would have this siren that would go off every day to let people know it was noon, in case they didn't know. And our dog would go down to the corner about noon and wait. And the minute the noon whistle would blow, he would, he would mimic it. It was so funny. Yeah, that was a fun one. He was he was just a wonderful man. He worked hard. He had 6 kids that he had to provide for, and that he taught music. He taught.
He had another child, right?
Right. And, well, let's see, Mike, Mark, Colette, April, Lisa,
So
Lori.
Those are your
No,
kids.
that's mine. Gordon, Glenda, Shirley, Norma, Claire, Annette, and then Lynn. Yeah, 6 kids, and later had the 7th. But in those days, to provide for a family wasn't easy because he would teach music lessons for 50 cents a lesson after he traveled the whole from the middle of Utah down to the southern part of Utah and over to Colorado, back over and back, and would get home Saturday night about 11 o'clock, from teaching all day. And but he always was there for us. He just he took care of us, and he was a good example, and he taught his own kids music. If I repeat, I'm sorry, but these are the things that stand out in my memory of him. And
he loved to garden.
Oh, he was a gardener. Thank you. He always had a large garden. He had to provide for his family because he wasn't making enough money to just go buy food. Of course, they bought food, but milk and stuff. But he always had a huge garden and would work in it. I can remember the rows, the rows where he would irrigate and go out and pull a thing up to let water run down each row. You had to be out there to manage it and everything. And I can remember being at the bottom of the water rows, and he'd open the gate and the water would just fall down and flow down, and he would maybe hoe it a little bit, and that's the way he raised his family.
And he was a record keeper.
And he what?
And he was a journal writer.
Yeah, he always his dad was a really good journal writer, Joseph H. Dean, and then he kept a good journal too. I can remember one of the things we did as a family. We had a big willow tree out in the backyard, and we would sit in a circle outside, all of us, and we'd pod the peas. Pod the peas, And then my mom would take them in and can them, Then they didn't freeze them like they do now, but she'd bottle them, and she did a lot of that stuff. So, and that's the way they managed to feed their kids because it isn't like today. You go out and buy it, But they did it. They raised it, and I don't know. They were just amazing to me. My mother was a real homemaker. While my dad was out teaching and, teaching all day and then all Saturday and everything, she was home with the kids. And she sewed all of our clothes. We didn't just go out and buy like they do now. She would sew our dresses. In fact, the 5 girls were dancers. We were kind of in steps. Our heads kind of went like a step, And so we would go out and we took lessons from a lady named Della Lund. She taught us tap dancing, and we, the 5 girls on stage, would go out and do these tap dance things and tap dances, And that was fun. That's a big memory I have of that. And she would sew all of our clothes, and she would. Oh, one thing I remember that's a little funny is she would have a stand and she would measure, and she was meticulous about the bottom of all of our dresses being even because we danced, on the shows, and everything had to be perfectly even. Well, one day, Della Lund, our dance teacher, picked us up and took us over to Manti because they were going to do a show there in the Manti Theater. And so we got dressed, and I don't remember whether Della Lund helped us get dressed or whether we just, put on our own clothes. But and then they took pictures of it and put it out in front of the theater in Manti to advertise. Well, when my mom saw that picture, all the dress hems were even except my older sister, two sisters, and one went down a little bit and back up, so it wasn't quite even. And she, after all the effort she went to do it and make it perfect, here was this one little glitch, She was a little upset about that. Oh dear. Well, I had an older brother, Gordon. He was a sweetheart. He played the violin. We all played our instruments because, string ensembles and stuff. He played the violin, and as he got older, he served in the Army. And I think he played the flute in the Army. I'm not really sure about that. But, okay, that's Gordon. And then Glenna she played the piano like you wouldn't believe. Shirley played the cello. I played the violin. Norma. Claire played the violin. Annette played the cello. And then 11 years later, Lynn popped out, and he could have been a concert pianist had he wanted to be. That's how good he got on the piano. But he ended up teaching 80 students a week, down in St. George. He'd teach at home on Saturdays during the day, the work days. He'd teach at the university piano, and so he was an artist. Let me tell you, Lynn was. So I've got a wonderful family. I've got lots of memories. My grandpa Dean, my last name was Dean, um, was a patriarch, and he gave me my patriarchal blessing, as he did all of his grandkids, and that meant a lot to us, In fact, I want to get a copy of it. I don't think I have a copy of it now, but I want to get a copy of it and reread it and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be. It'd be interesting to see, well, yeah, this happened, and how did he know that was going to happen? Not that he could foresee everything, but things that mean a lot to you, in life. A lot of times he'd say, you will do this and that. Anyway, he laid his hands on our heads and gave each of his grandkids a patriarchal blessing. That meant a lot to me, really. And I have that memory of him, My other grandpa was a doctor, Grandpa Cutler, in Rexburg, Idaho. And he took my tonsils out, for one thing. Shame on him. That hurt, but but he did a lot of helping people, and I'm not sure he ever, really got paid what he was worth at the time. I mean, he would charge for, of course, but a lot of it was just service to people that needed it, and he was a good one. I'm trying to think about my grandma Cutler. I don't remember too much about her, or she was probably a stay-at-home mom, and but they were all active in the church all through. I've always had great thing to look forward, to, what do you call it? Examples. They were all great examples to me throughout my life.
Tell me about your Grandpa Dean and his music. So he served a mission in Hawaii, right?
Yes.
And opened up that mission.
Right. Later served a mission in Samoa with my dad, who served his mission in Samoa. And they loved those Samoan people. And they're naturally very musical also. And so they would really pick up, they would teach them, and they were natural musicians. So they had all kinds of musical programs over there. And of course the Hawaiian dancers. And I don't know, it was just a great experience for them. I know that it meant a lot to them through their lives.
What were they able to do with the hymn book over there?
They translated. That's a big thing. Thank you. Gosh, you've got a good memory. My dad and Grandpa, let's see, I think that's right, translated the hymn book into the Samoan language and had it printed. Later on, the church had that printed, a lot of books printed for the people over there to use. And so that helped them a lot in their service programs to have the hymns to sing in their own language, because they probably didn't all understand English. And so I think that was a real blessing to those people.
And your grandpa and your dad have a few hymns in the hymn book, right?
Yep, they do. You are good. You are good. Yes, my grandfather, gosh, do you know the names of them? Let's see. My grandfather had one, is it, or two? And then my dad had. I've been away from that for so long that I play the organ, so I don't sing the hymns, so I don't pay too much attention to who arranged them or who wrote them or something. But what were you going to say?
Before Thee, Lord.
Before Thee, Lord, I bow my head. That was a hymn.
That was Joseph H.'s, and then Harry's was God Bless Our Prophet Dear and Savior Redeemer.
Yes, Savior, Redeemer of my soul. Good, Lisa, thank you. And God bless our prophet dear. And that meant a lot to them, because when they lived in Arizona, they were very close to Kimball, Spencer W. Kimball, who later on, wasn't he president of the church at one time? But when they lived in Arizona earlier than that, they were very special friends. And so we always felt really close to the Kimballs. And so that's a neat memory for me too. Well, in those days we didn't live really close together. One was, like I say, my family originated in Idaho more than Utah, and then my dad took teaching at Snow College, which is about in the middle of Utah. Ephraim, is about the middle of north-south, about the middle of Utah. But my grandfather used to come down and spend time with us, and I think that's when he gave me my patriarchal blessing, was in one of those visits. And let me think. Grandpa Cutler, I think, was more tied down with his medical people, people that he was doctoring. So I don't remember him coming visiting us, but we did go up there and visit them.
Your grandpa used to pull you guys around in a sled, right?
Yes. Was that my grandpa or my dad?
Maybe it was your dad.
My dad, we had 6 kids, so he would get, and he was a tease, my dad was. So we'd get this deep snow, and they'd plow the roads, and as they plowed, they'd throw the snow off to the side of the road so that it was kind of piled out deeper on the edge. Well, he'd be pulling us on this sled uh, behind the car. And then he'd go off to the side, and it would force us to go out into the deep snow on the sled, and sometimes we'd get stuck in the snow and not be able to go further, and the rope would, it would not break, but just slide through. And we'd be sitting there in a snow pile, and he'd drive off a little ways, like he was going to leave us, and then he'd back up and pick us up and attach the sled again, and off we'd go. But he was a tease. It was lots of fun. Grandkids. Seeing your grandkids grow up the right way, In this day and age, you see an awful lot of trashy, The kids that don't have the example or, haven't had the example to live with high standards. And I think that I've been really blessed to have kids that have raised their kids, which are my grandkids. I don't know, I'm just real proud of them, the things that they do. I've been to their concerts, orchestra and band concerts. It's fun to see them all getting the music, in their lives, since music's such a big thing with me. But in other areas also, and they're cute, they're good. It's just a real blessing, I think. It's just fun being a great grandma. Okay, I always loved to dance. We had a huge dance floor called Dreamland Hall, and then up above was the live band, and that's where I grew up going to dances there. And so when I went to BYU, I remember they had there was a man there called Jack Hansen. He was a missionary. He'd been a missionary, and he got this 17-piece big band organized it of BYU students. And Frank played the trombone, and he had some experience playing with bands on the East Coast, Brooklyn and New York. And so he'd had some band experiences, Well, I remember one thing that wasn't very nice of me, but if I would be sitting on the sidelines, and Frank would, or his name was Tommy Ray, and he'd stand up and take a solo, and it's like Tommy Dorsey, he'd mimic Tommy Dorsey because he was a trombonist, and he'd stand up and take solos with the band. Well, I thought, oh, what a show off, because I wasn't used to seeing that, with the bands that I had seen in Ephraim, in Dreamland Hall. But later on, let's see, Jack Hansen was the leader of the band, and he was a Catholic, born Catholic, and strong, a good Catholic, and he, Mike would, or let's see, getting my names mixed up, he would take Frank, drive him home after, and of course they'd sit in the car and talk, and they'd discuss it, and little by little he'd tell him a little bit what we believed, and so that kind of exposed him to some of the beliefs that the LDS people have. And then when you went to BYU, you're required to take a religion class, but they're broad-minded, BYU. He says, if you're not LDS, if you want to take a class at your own church or anything, we'll give you credit. We'll count that as your religion class. And so for I don't know how long, like I say, he lived on 12th East. So he walked from 12th East down 12 blocks to Main Street, another 5 blocks to 5th West, over 2 blocks to go to Catholic Mass every morning at 5. He'd get up at 5. Catholic Mass was at 6. Then he would go to Mass, and then he'd walk those blocks again and up a hill to the campus, you know, for his classes, you know. And he was diligent. And so when he joined the LDS Church, he was diligent. It just meant a lot to him. And I think that's what made him a really good guy. But I feel like I was very blessed to have met him, fall in love with him, and married him.
So did Grandpa first notice you at the dance, or how did he get to know who you were?
When he was in the dance band, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how he noticed me. I remember dancing, you know, you dance in a circle, and as you pass in front of the band, I remember him looking down, but I don't know that I was expecting anything. But he was a cutie. He was a sweetheart.
Can you tell me a little bit about why his name was Tommy Ray?
Yes, because his father was in the service and served in Germany. And while he was over there, he met this English lady, decided to stay over there with her. And so that left Frank, and he was an only child. So Frank and his mom, he left them in Florida, you know, and didn't come home after the war for a while. Later on, he did. Later on, he came home and tried to make amends and stuff, and they were rejoined later. But at the time, they weren't. And so you started to say
So he changed his name
to Tommy Ray because he liked Tommy Dorsey, the band Tommy Dorsey, and he didn't want to carry his dad's name because he didn't care about him, so why carry his name forward? So he changed his name legally to Tommy Ray. And that's the way he went through college. That was his name when I met him, and when I married him, I used to be Norma Ray. Would you believe it? I can hardly remember that. But then later on, his dad came over and made amends with his mom. They remarried, and his dad wanted him to change his name back so that he could carry the Dupree name. Yeah, he had a really good teacher that he really loved, and so he took her last name when he changed his name. He was going to change. Well, the servicemen were all coming home from the war, and where was their dad? You know, he was still in England, and so his mother didn't feel very comfortable about that. He said, "Well, if you know, well, let's just change our name." And so I think they did, and because he liked Tommy Dorsey, am I thinking right? Decided to take the name Tommy and Tommy Ray. Where'd you get Ray from?
From a teacher.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you've got a memory. I forget the teacher. He had a special teacher. Her last name was Ray. I sang with was it six voice or was it larger than that? Anyway, a vocal group. And we sang jazz. And he was playing in the band, and then we would get up and sing with the band. And he was sitting there one day, and when we were singing, he turned to his friend that was playing trombone and says, Do you know that girl right there? He says, Yeah. do you know her name? Oh, will you introduce her to me? So that's how I met him, was through Jack Hansen, I guess it was. Yeah, and so that's the way we got to know each other, and it was good. He was one real special person. Well, like I say, at the end of the war, the soldiers were all coming home to their families, and it was a big deal. Man, they would come in groups, and the people out on the street, and they'd welcome them and everything. Where was his dad? And because he stayed in Europe with the lady that he hooked up with over there, which isn't a very pretty story, but so because because it bothered his mother, so much. He said, "Well, why don't we move?" Because she felt like her friends, everybody around noticed her husband wasn't coming home. So he said, "Well, we'll just move somewhere." She said, "Okay, well, where do you want to move?" "Well, I don't know. I don't have any, ties anywhere." So, well, if you can't come up with, if you don't have any desires to go to a certain place, then he was just joking. "I'll spin you around. You'll put your finger in the map, and wherever that lands, that's where we'll move." And she said, "Okay." It shocked him. Didn't expect her to go with that plan. So they did it, and he spun her around, put her finger in the middle of the map, and it landed right in the middle of Utah. And he says, "Okay, we'll move to Utah," not thinking that she would. And she says, "Okay." So they picked up and moved to Utah. And BYU, he was interested in music, and BYU is always big in music. And so that just clicked, So that's where he met Jack Hansen and started playing in the 17-piece big band, and all that story came about. But I can remember they had orchestra. The main buildings were up kind of on the hill, and then there was a little down slope and a building down there that they built for, and they'd have the orchestra and band, and the music department was kind of down there. So then we would walk up the hill to get our other classes. And that's when he was playing and I was playing, violin, he was playing trombone. And after we would walk up the hill, and then all of a sudden one day his little finger clicked onto my little finger. And we walked up the hill holding little fingers, So that's that's one cute thing that I remember about him. Thanks for reminding me about that. Well, we were married in the Manti Temple, right? And we went on our honeymoon at, oh gosh, let's see. Lake Tahoe, yeah, thank you. Boy, it's been a few years. And that was really a neat place. Thoroughly enjoyed it up there. And President Kimball and my dad, because they were in Arizona, they were very close, really good friends, and so we got advice from him. I remember he said you should wait a year and do it the right way and be sealed in the temple. First of all, he was a very special, honest, thoughtful, just a great example, I think. And he's been a great example to our kids and to our grandkids, right? You remember him?
Yes.
Just very sincere in everything he did, and very considerate. I don't know. And he liked music. He was a musician, and I love music. So, I mean, music brought us together, actually. Well, speaking of Lake Tahoe, that was a really fun, nice trip, and that we went on. memories with my husband. Well, like he played in a dance band and I like to dance, so I was a little bit, that was hard for me. But like I say, he got off about 4 dances a night to dance with me, so that was good. First of all, you need to be sincere and honest and respect your partner to the extent that you make a really good couple. You set a really good example for your family and grandkids and whatever. And you serve the Lord as you know, it's nice if you work together, but not only, the priesthood and the Relief Society don't always get to, the husband and wife don't always get to serve together that way, but it brings you closer. It seals your connection, I think. We went, first 2 years I went to Snow Junior College, and they had the junior and senior high school kids go to Snow College and with the freshman and sophomore college kids. So it was a 4-year school. It was like a 4-year college because of that. But I thoroughly enjoyed Snow College, but when I went to BYU, I thoroughly enjoyed that too. Music is my life. I played the organ in sacrament meeting. I play the piano in primary. And any stake meetings, I play the organ at. So music, that's the only thing I can do. I say, don't ever ask me to teach a class. That'll scare me to death. But in Sunday school classes, when they're discussing things, a lot of times I'll have a thought that goes along with the lesson, and but a lot of times I'm too shy to say it, but sometimes I do. I'm getting better at that. But if I have a good thought, then I think, well, you should say it. But I don't know. I've always been kind of shy that way. A homemaker, a musician, music teacher. I don't know. Yeah, I was raised in a good home, you know, and I guess that's what I wanted to have too. And I did have some good kids, good grandkids, just like you too. Stay close to the Lord, live a good life, serve others, love your family, just read the scriptures, just do everything that is uplifting in your life and avoid the things. There's so much out there now that's trashy and everything, so just avoid the bad and, and live the good. I think that will bless your life forever, make you stronger, and prepare you for when you leave. I Going through the death process is the hardest part of the Lord's plan. I know that He can't let us all live forever. I know it's necessary to die, but to lose loved ones, or when I think I'm 94 now, I have to think about I think being buried 6 feet under. Aren't we blessed to realize that you're not going to stay there forever? There's a hereafter that we can look forward to. And so that's a big blessing in my life because, like I say, it's a hard process for me, but the end that you can look forward to and to be with your loved ones, you know, later, that's a big benefit, I think. Something I'm grateful for. I want to be remembered like a good kid. Of course, everybody wants to be remembered that they're good. Well, if you can just look at the good things I've done and anything that you didn't like that I've done, like sometimes I get kind of, I don't know, or do I? I don't even know if I do, but anything I do that isn't good, just forget it. Just remember the good things, okay? Promise? So I played the drunkard in the play, and then I lived at Night Hall, and we lived. My room was. We had the office and the entry and everything. Then a set of stairs, and my room was right at the top of the stairs. And so every once in a while, I'd come down acting. If there were people down there, I'd come down acting drunk. and, you know, and then I even wandered out in front of Night Hall once, just down the stairs, just acting silly, but that was embarrassing. Well, my favorite hobby is music. What else do I like to do? Oh, crossword puzzles, uh, reading. I love to read. I love to read a lot of different things, but I am reading Book of Mormon from cover to cover again, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. I've read it several times, but every time you read it, you get a kind of a new,
Perspective.
yeah, and you learn, So I love the scriptures, but I like just reading other things. Let's see. There's a great big book Spencer W. Kimball has written about his life, the story of Spencer W. Kimball, and that's a great big black book like that thick, and and I'm starting to read that, and it's interesting, especially because he lived in Arizona and was a special friend of my dad's, and they were special friends. So to read his story is really interesting for me. And when I get home, I'm going to continue to read that book. I've got this little speaker that you can talk to tell it to, and I'd say, hey, what you call it?
Siri.
Hey Siri, play Glenn Miller, or play orchestral jazz, or and I love it because sitting there alone, kind of in my little corner, and doing my reading and stuff. But I like to have music going too, because sometimes I don't turn the music on, and it's kind of drab, It's not as fun or interesting or relaxing as it when I have the music in the background. So I love music, as you can tell. Gordon served in the Army, and Frank served in the Navy. I'm right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. Gordon. Let's see.
Did Lynn serve?
Lynn came later, so I don't think that they had the service like they did in Gordon's era. I don't think Lynn has been in the service, but I could be wrong. This played a big role um, from the beginning when I got my patriarchal blessing from my grandfather when I was young, or baptized, in the Manti Temple, and then the patriarchal blessing, and then going to BYU and serving. I've served in Relief Society. All through my life, the church has just been a big part of my life. What would I do without it? Gosh. And I think it's so inspired because the Lord knows what we need, and that's where you find it. think, in the gospel. We served a mission in Dortmund, Germany. My husband was a convert to the church, so he didn't get to go on a mission as a young man. So he always wanted to. And so we were called to serve a family history mission in Dortmund, Germany. And that was a real neat experience for both of us. And we made really good friends there. I remember getting off the plane, and President Nabrodsky, or I think he was a bishop at the time, I'm not sure, met us at the plane. We didn't even know he was going to, but evidently the correspondence with the church or whatever, I don't know how he even found out that we were coming, but he met us and took us and showed us where we were going to live, showed us the church where we'd go to, where we'd attend church, and just worked with us the whole time we were there. And he'd have us over for Sunday dinner, and he just took us under his wing. It was a special memory that I have of President Nabrodsky, or Bishop Nabrodsky. The church means everything to me. And like you say, as you think back of the different things that have happened throughout your life and how the church has been such a blessing to you, and I just know that the Lord has been with the leaders throughout the church. And I really am grateful that He has blessed the church leaders down, as they were developed, like Joseph Smith, all he went through to bring the church to a head, and the blessing that how the Lord blessed him to be strong through his young age, to, think what he had to go through, what he had to do in order to bring the gospel to us and to, establish the church and stuff. And Brigham Young, too. They went through a lot to get us what we have today. And so I'm just really grateful for the leaders, and I'm grateful for the leaders that we have today. President Nelson, he's a special guy. Dallin H. Oaks, we met in Germany, he came from Germany, right? So we met him over there. I think he must have been in the stake presidency or something.
Was that Uchtdorf?
Uchtdorf, yeah.
Okay.
Who did I say?
You said Oaks.
Oh, no, it wasn't Oaks. Uchtdorf, yeah. And so I was excited when I heard that they'd called him to be in the presidency, because we'd known him in Germany, and he was a special leader over there. So I like him a lot. But the church is a big part of my life. Don't know what to do without it.